Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Letty Bermudez Thermal Shock Natural Processed Colombia from Archetype Coffee. And there's the bag right there. And Archetype, based out of Omaha, Nebraska. And this is our second ever full bag review of one of Archetype's coffees, having recently reviewed a different coffee from the famed Diego Bermudez farm. And for anybody that's not aware, Manhattan's version of this coffee last year finished first place in our top 10 coffees of 2021 year-end list. So when I saw that Archetype was releasing the same coffee, it's something that definitely caught my interest, and I was looking to see if they could replicate the same sort of experience with their version of this coffee. This right here is day 36. The recipe we went with for this coffee was our standard recipe, a 16:1 water to coffee ratio, brewed up to 205 degrees Fahrenheit, and I like this one best through the Chemex, which indicates a more medium grind. Archetype is an American light for the roast profile. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. Day 9, first impression, and the grounds themselves had the wild Letty-esque aroma. So to put it in context for anybody that doesn't have any familiarity with this coffee specifically, it has this wild peach-like aroma, taste as well, that is a lot more reminiscent of what some people might describe as tinned peaches or peach gummies, as opposed to a fresh peach itself. It doesn't really taste like a peach, but rather a more sugary artificial peach that was vibrant and very much within the aroma itself. A little less pronounced in the cup, but definitely still present, as it was a very vibrant cup of coffee. Not to the same extent as the experience I'd had with Manhattan's version of this coffee, but it was still early, so we were going to see if maybe we could get a little bit more out of it. Day 12, next impression, it was another positive day to this coffee as it continues to radiate that special Letty-esque aspect in a somewhat less pronounced manner, but it is complemented in great abundance by this bubble milk tea component to it. So this coffee I can describe as a couple of things. It reminded me a lot of maybe a mango yogurt or a mango milk tea, as it had this kind of creamy taste to it. As opposed to the Manhattan version, which was a lot more peach gummy forward, this one was a little bit more balanced. It had a little bit more of those two things where it wasn't skewing very heavily in that peach gummy direction. Day 15, back through the V60, and it's not quite as peach intense, but rather much more of this yogurty mango cup, which is something that I've kind of hinted towards at this point. Creamy in general, as it's reminiscent of a stone fruit milk tea once again. So it's really good. It's just slightly different, but it's definitely different enough that you can notice the differences between the two. Day 18, cup continues to have notable improvement with time, which was very much expected. That's what I experienced from the first Letty Bermudez, and that's very much the case in this one as well, as it's pretty clean for what it is. The stone fruit aspects continue to remain quite pronounced, sugary but less sweet in a candy sense and more of in a milky sense. So again, that's something I'm highlighting, whereas the Manhattan version was very candy sweet. This one's a little bit more of this kind of creamy, sweet, milkiness, creaminess, yogurtiness. Day 21. Cup is continuing to improve with time as the stronger Letty characteristics are continuing to develop, continuing to become a little bit more vibrant. Still reminiscent of the mango milk tea as opposed to the overly vibrant peach gummy rings. It's really sweet, it's really positive, it's just slightly different. And that's going to be the continuous theme throughout, is the cup continues to see improvement, as here on day 24, more improvement. It's starting to more closely resemble the original Letty, because the original Letty just had this extra special vibrancy to it as well. And that's here in this cup too. Vibrant yellow fruits emitted in the cup, very wild, so many of them, thinking again that peach, that mango. While it's still not quite as peachy, it's not quite as sugary, it still just has its own unique sweetness that is very vibrant. Lovely cup of coffee. Day 27, cup continues along the same trajectory as it remains consistent with the wildly vibrant yellow fruits. Mango really seems to pop a little bit more in this cup than in the other Letty, whereas the other one just felt a lot more peach forward. This one continues to remain more mango forward, and that's fine with me. It just goes to show the cup has a little bit more versatility, as this one had both of those two things, just skewing a little bit more in one direction as opposed to the Manhattan version. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. And 3 level 5s. So let's go through those real quick. The finish, the sweetness, and the stone fruit. I feel like you can kind of talk about them all in one quick discussion here, because it is a very sweet cup of coffee. It is a very stone fruit, sweet forward cup of coffee. Again, continuously thinking the more sugary stone fruits, the sugary mango, and then the peach, which again, not quite as candied peach, but much more of a secondary, I don't know how I'd even describe the peach. It's not quite the tinned candied peach, but rather a slightly more artificial peach, like a peach milk tea even, because I could align that with the milk tea creamy yogurt component, but it just reminds me a lot more of mango in general. Finish, level 5. Very lasting finish, which isn't really surprising. It's a very vibrant, wild cup of coffee, and in that sense, those things in abundance are really positive, because if it has a really nice finish because of the wonderful flavor coming from it, then that's going to sell really well. So positive in those aspects. Cleanliness, level 4. That's one of the big marks I want to give them credit for here, because the other Letty had a little bit of funkiness to it at the start, and it did kind of settle off with a little bit more time. I was throwing that coffee a little bit earlier than this one, but this one never really had that same sort of funkiness or any sort of... It's always kind of surprising how little any of the less clean aspects come in a cup of coffee that's like this, with this very unique processing method. This one was very clean, so it definitely justifies that level 4 mark. Let's see here, body, lower, level 2. I know I've been discussing this kind of creaminess, this milk tea component, this yogurt component, but that's a little bit more in the taste as opposed to in terms of the body. I think the Chemex played a role in this because it did keep it a little lower on the body, and the V60 just gave a little bit more body, but I really appreciated the clarity that was coming from the Chemex, hence the reason I went with that brew method, and it really helped a lot of these factors shine a little bit more. Acidity, level 3, that's been interesting with the Letty coffees. They haven't been the most acidic cup of coffee, which is a positive thing for me as somebody that's not necessarily the biggest fan of the acidity. So it's really hitting the marks I look for the most. So it has great sweetness, great clarity, very nice finish, and fruit vibrancy, while at the same time maintaining the acidity at a level that I can feel comfortable with. So I really like the way that this tasting wheel looks. I think it's a pretty nice representation of what I was getting from this coffee. All right. So my overall thoughts and impressions of this Letty Bermudez. Positive, very positive. And I think the thing I have to say the most is Letty Bermudez is such an amazing and special coffee that I don't want to discredit for Archetype, because I don't want to discredit Archetype for their version of this coffee, because I think it's very good. And truth be told, because of how special Letty Bermudez is, I imagine that this one will also finish on our top 10 coffees of the year list. However, I don't like it to the same extent that I did last year's version of Letty Bermudez, and it could just be that since I tried that one first, I have much more positive memories of it. That's the cup of coffee that really set the benchmark, and given that this one, at the very best, is equal to it, it's not quite for me. For that reason, it just doesn't necessarily live up to the same sort of expectations I had from the first one. The main reason for that is this one, as I've been discussing throughout this video, skews a little bit more on the mango side of things as opposed to the very clear and defined peach gummy aspects that I experienced from Manhattan's version of this coffee. So little differences, minor differences, still a wonderful coffee nonetheless, a very special cup of coffee. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to, if you've never had Letty Bermudez and your main reason has been because of the European factor, well, this is an American coffee roaster that does offer it, and I think that they did a very nice job. I feel like it as closely resembles the Manhattan version of Letty Bermudez as any other coffee I've had, even if it doesn't have the same sort of very unique peach aspect that the Manhattan version did. It still has the same Letty-esque vibrancy that is quite wild, pronounced, defined, and clear at the same time. So for all of those reasons, this is a perfect opportunity to try a coffee that a lot of people have discussed over the last couple of years as being special, unique, transcendent. I think for the most part though, I'll leave this review at that. If you've by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, we'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Letty Bermudez Thermal Shock Natural Processed Colombia from Archetype Coffee. Thank you for watching.